Hello everyone, we're going to go ahead and finish chapter 1 today. So just a recap of what happened last time was that Serafina wanted to help this little girl because she felt like she was in trouble. The girl, it said that she was being scraped across the stone. Excuse me. She was being scraped across the stone floor. She had some blood-curdling screams. She said that the little girl looked so helpless, so slow and weak and frightened, and more than anything, she needed a friend to help her fight. Serafina wanted to be that friend, and she wanted to help her, but she couldn't bring herself to move in that direction. So that's kind of where we left off at, so we're going to pick up from there on page 17, if you're following along at the very, very bottom. It says, then she heard the girl scream again. That dirty, rotten rat's going to kill her, Serafina thought. He's gonna kill her. But with the burst of anger and courage, she raced towards the sound. Her legs felt like explosions of speed. Her mind blazed with fear and exhilaration. She turned the corner after corner. But when she came to the mossy stone stairway that led down into the deepest bowels of the sub-basement, she stopped, gasping for breath. She shook her head. It was a cold, wet, slimy, horrible place that she had always done her best to avoid, especially in the winter. She heard stories that they stored dead bodies in the sub-basement in the winter when the ground was too frozen to dig a grave. Why in the world had the girl gone down there? Serafina made her way, halting down the wet, sticky stairs. Goodness, excuse me. Guess I'm a little sleepy. Serafina made her way, halting down the wet, sticky stairs, lifting and shaking off her foot after each slimy step she took. When at last she reached the bottom, she followed a long, slanting corridor where the ceiling dripped with brown sludge. The whole dank, disgusting place gave her the jitters, something fierce, but she kept going. You've got to help her, she told herself again. You can't turn back. She wound her way through the labyrinth of the twisting tunnels. She turned right, then left, then left, then right, until she lost track of how far she'd gone. Then she heard the sound of fighting and shouting just around the corner ahead of her. She was very close. She hesitated, frightened, her heart pounding so hard it felt like it was going to burst. Her body shook all over. She didn't want to go another step. But friends had to help friends. She didn't know much about life, but she did know that. She knew that for sure. And she wasn't going to run away like a scared, out of her wits squirrel just when somebody needed her most. Trembling all over, she steadied herself the best she could. She sucked in a deep breath and pushed herself around the corner. A broken lantern lay tipped on the stone floor, its glass shattered, but the flame still burning. In its halo of flattering light, a little girl in a yellow dress struggled for her life. A tall man in a black cloak and hood, his hands stained with blood, grabbed the girl by the wrist. The girl tried to pull away. No, let me go, she screamed. Quiet down, the man told her, his voice seething in a dark, unworldly tone. I'm not going to hurt you, child, he said for the second time. The girl had curly blonde hair and pale white skin. She fought to escape, but the man in the black cloak pulled her towards him. He tangled her in his arms. She flailed and struck him in the face with her tiny fist. Just stay still and it'll all be over, he said, pulling her towards him. Serafina suddenly realized that she had made a dreadful mistake. This is far more than she could handle. She knew that she should help the girl, but she was so scared that her feet stuck to the floor. She couldn't even breathe, let alone fight. Help her, Serafina's mind screamed at her. Help her attack the rat. Attack the rat. She finally plucked up her courage and charged forward. But Just at that moment, the man's black satin cloak floated upward as if possessed by a smoky spirit. The girl screamed. The folds of the cloak slithered around her like tentacles of a hungry serpent. The cloak seemed to move in its own accord, wrapping, twisting, accompanied by a disturbing rattling noise like the hissing threats of 100 rattlesnakes. Serafina saw the girl's horrified face looking at her from within the folds of the enveloping cloak. The girl's pleading blue eyes wide with fear. "Help me! Help me!" Then the folds closed over her. The scream went silent. The girl disappeared, leaving nothing but the blackness of the cloak. Serafina gasped in shock. One moment the girl was struggling to get free, the next she vanished into thin air. The cloak had consumed her. Overwhelmed with confusion, grief, and fear, Serafina stood there in this stunned bewilderment. For several seconds the man seemed to vibrate violently, and a ghoulish aurora glowed around him in the dark, shimmering haze. A horrible foul smell of rotting guts invaded Serafina's nostrils, forcing her head to jerk back. She wrinkled her nose and squinched her mouth and tried not to breathe in. She must have made some sort of involuntary gagging noise, for the man in the black cloak suddenly turned and looked at her, seeing her for the first time. It felt like a giant claw gripped around her chest. The folds in the man's hood shrouded his face, but she